Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to do a after action report of the battle that me and General Danilov had last week, where we took the army of the Ottoman Empire against his Russian cavalry force. Now those of you who haven't seen it, I'm going to talk about some general principles, but it might be best if you do watch that one first, just so you know the specifics that I'm talking about. But before we get started, I want to say a absolutely massive shout out, a huge thank you to one Mr. Nick Hindley, a loyal follower of the channel, because he has sent me some pictures of his Ottoman army. So the slideshow that you can see today are not mine. They are from Mr. Nick Hindley, and I want to say thank you so much to him for sending me these pictures. I do have some other guys who sent me the pictures, so thank you very much. I haven't necessarily replied to all of you, so if I haven't, apologies, 1,000 apologies for that one. That's me being super slack. You've gone out of your way to photograph and send me the picture of your minis, so I do apologise. I need to get back on that, but if I haven't thanked you personally, take this as your thanks. Thank you so much. But Mr. Nick Hindley has sent me some pictures. He sent me some notes as well, so I'm going to put those down in the description down below. But these pictures are his. They're absolutely fantastic. I think they're a really cool looking army, and they're exactly what I was hoping these videos about the Ottomans would really bring out. They're absolutely great. Thank you so much, Nick. I just absolutely love them. They're so bright and colourful. The artillery crews I particularly like. I also really like the classic Goblin Green bases you've gone for. Just absolute legends. It's just absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. But basically what I wanted to do is talk about the lessons that I learned from that battle. Not tactically and strategically, but the lessons I learned from writing my own book, the playtest that we had of the rules, and the tweaks that I've made since. So those of you who have seen the battle will remember that the Dardanelles gun was particularly effective. It was pretty good. It wasn't as good as my rockets when I was facing General Andy. I don't think I recorded that one. So I had a rocket battery and it just hit every single time. It was just insane dice rolling. And, and Andy banned me from using rockets ever again. So, so that's why you've never seen rockets on the channel. They're still embargoed. But yeah, the Dardanelles gun was pretty strong. The 2 dice, re-rolling misses. Admittedly, they were hitting on 5s, but they were re-rolling their misses due to the enfilade special rule. And allowing no save made them a little bit strong. Now, it must be said that General Danilov did keep parking his cavalry units right in front of the cannon. The cannon could only fire the width of its base forward. Now, I didn't write that in the rules, so that's something for me to add. But yeah, it's on a 100mm base, and it fires like a column, basically, just to represent the fact that it is a mobile. It could move a little bit. You could put wedges under it to move it, but largely it couldn't really move. So he did keep parking his cavalry in front of it, so he did give it targets for the whole game. So that was quite nice of him, I suppose. But no, we felt it was a bit powerful. Now, in the original rules, now I have updated the rules for these units we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to upload that on Facebook. I'm also looking at a way of getting it onto Dropbox or something like that. I'll be honest with you, I don't really use Dropbox, so I need to look into how to do that properly. But yeah, so I've updated the Dardanelles gun on there. Previously, it fired every 2 turns. I've reduced that to firing every 3 turns. So it has a turn to fire, then 2 turns to reload, and then it can fire again. So if it was fired on turn 1, then it'd be reloading turns 2 and 3, and then it'd fire again turn 4. So I've just extended that out a little bit more. I think it should be fearsome when it does fire, so I've just reduced its rate of fire to just to knock it down a little bit. Now, the big thing for me was something that I had in the back of my mind anyway, because it was after I'd written the Ottoman rules, I read this little nugget of information, but it was the formations of the Janissaries. Now, Janissaries, most infantry, I should say, in the Napoleonic period, has the must form square special rule, and that's to represent, you know, that units, when they saw cavalry, they'd form square, stick their bayonets out, and that would be a good defensive formation. If you've seen Waterloo, then you know exactly what that looks like. However, the Ottomans didn't do that because they didn't have bayonets, so there was very little point in doing that. They actually used swords, so you can't really make an effective square without the bayonets. So that meant that when they were charged by the cavalry, they got to stand and shoot in line, and then fight in line as well. And I think that made them a little too powerful. So I've changed their rule now. So they can still form line, but instead of having must form square, they have must form deep line. Now, deep line is a suggested rule in the Albion Triumphant and the Clash of Eagles books, actually. Now, for me, I count the suggested rules as being the supplement rules. As a lot of you know, I used to play Warhammer Fantasy. I still do play Warhammer Fantasy. So I see the army books as being like the army books are in Fantasy. I see those as being the rules for that period and those armies. But, you know, that's just me, you know. You have to go your own way on that one, as Fleetwood Mac nearly said. So for the deep line, it effectively means that you go, if you've got a unit of 24, instead of being one row deep of 6 bases, you'll go 2 rows of 3 bases. So you form like a little rectangle, basically, and that means that you lose 2 close combat, and you lose 1 firepower. So I've upped the combat and the firepower to just regular stats, so 6 and 3. But the chances are, if you're in deep line, then you're going to be losing those as well. I'm also going to think about maybe giving them deep line removes the unreliable bonus, the penalty. Now, I'll come on to that in a second. But the idea there is to encourage players to put their troops in the historically accurate formation, which was deep line. It was very similar to how the Swedes used to fight in the Great Northern War. They would be very, very deep with their musketeers, not just 2 ranks. They'd be, 6, 8, 12 ranks deep, and they'd form almost like a square. So that's the idea of that. And I think it will stop them having the benefits of being in line, and none of the drawbacks of being charged by cavalry and forced into square. So I've changed that one as well. Now, speaking of the unreliable, something that we saw in this battle, if you've seen the even earlier battle that I had, where we had the French in 1805 versus the Russians and the Austrians, you'll have seen there that I talked about how it was important to get the Austrians and Russians to attack, because otherwise their lower strategy rating wouldn't actually come into the game. That's something that we found playing the game here. The Ottomans, with them having the strategy rating of 6 and being unreliable, made it very, very hard for them to actually do anything. I didn't even use the full by the Sultan's command special rule, where you have to measure ranges from the Sultan either. So I may end up getting rid of the unreliable, or possibly the forced strategy rating 6. I haven't quite decided yet. The Russians are forced to be strategy rating 6. It effectively makes them strategy rating 5, which is, it's really difficult to get anything done. That said, the Ottomans should be a mainly defensive force, so maybe we'll have a game or two where the Ottomans are in their entrenchments, they're in their defended positions, and the Russians or the British or the French have to attack them. So we'll have a look at that. That's not something that I necessarily want to change right now, but it is something that is on my radar. The other special rule about the Janissaries was just my General Al. Now, we've not seen General Al on the channel in a long old time. He was my opponent in the first ever battle report, which was uploaded just over 3 years ago. So, hats off to General Al there. He mentioned about the Fellaini got destroyed, and one of their supports were the Janissaries. The Janissaries had to test, but they stood. They didn't break or anything. And he suggested that maybe there should be a rule called expendable or beneath notice or something like that. That basically means that Janissaries can support the Fellaini, because the Fellaini would take moral support from knowing that they've got these elite, and I use that term in inverted commas, troops behind them or to their flanks. But ultimately, the Janissaries don't really care if this group of stick-armed peasants run away, so they shouldn't take the test. And I think that's absolutely fair enough. I've got the new army special, which allows it prevents Janissaries from supporting or being supported by the Nizami Jedid, and I think I will extend that so they can support Fellaini, but they can't be supported by Fellaini. I think that would be quite reasonable. I think that was a really good suggestion from General Al there. In fact, he suggested it, and I was like, no, I think that's a really good idea. And I think he kind of thought I was fobbing him off, but I genuinely wasn't. I was just like, yeah, it's a really good idea. There's not really much more to say. So that change will be coming in as well. I've managed to stitch together the 2 documents for the infantry and cavalry, which is the first part. I've managed to stitch that together with the artillery now as well. So I've made the changes to the artillery as I did that. I didn't get a chance to use curtain fire. I didn't get the mortars on the battlefield. And to be honest, it wasn't really an army that would have been useful against. But I'm looking forward to maybe trying that out in the future. But thank you very much for listening, and I will catch you guys next time.